Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Kentucky Spin's Lunch Shop today. We are going to be talking about charting the life course. We are actually in part 4 of our 5-part series. Today, we are actually going to be talking about creating a student snapshot or profile. I am Stella Beard. I'm the Assistant Director for Kentucky Spin. I have Michaela from Kentucky Spin and Kelly from Kentucky Spin with me today. They will be helping with questions. So just a little bit of housekeeping before I dive into our presentation today. On the right-hand side, if you've joined us before on our webinars, you will know this, but on the right-hand side is your dashboard. You will see a couple of drop-down boxes. One that I would like to point out to you is called Handouts. Under the Handout tab, you will have your PowerPoint there and 4 additional handouts. You are free to download those now, or later this afternoon, you will receive an email that'll have a certificate of completion, but it will also have link to the PowerPoint and also all of the handouts. So if you don't want to take time to look through those now, that is totally fine. Also, you will see a question drop-down box. And if you have a question throughout the presentation, if you could type those in the question box, I would really appreciate that. We'll stop periodically and see if anyone has a question. And so feel free, to type those questions in the question box. And then we'll be sure and answer them as we go along. So again, thank you all for joining us today. I'm really excited about this portion, part 4 of our 5-part series. And I think you all will really enjoy the information and the handouts that you'll be given. I hope you've grabbed yourself some lunch or something to drink and are ready to dive in. I want to tell you just a little bit about Kentucky Spin. If you're not familiar with us, Kentucky Spin, which means Special Parent Involvement Network, we are the Parent Training and Information Center for the state of Kentucky. Every state has what we call a PTI. Some states even have more than one. Kentucky Spin has been the Parent Training and Information Center since 1988, and that's when we first received the grant to become a PTI. We just recently were approved again for another 5 years, so we're very excited about that we're still going to be able to provide training, information, and support for children and youth with all types of disabilities, birth through age 26. We work with families, parents, and professionals and provide them with those resources and information that they need to be better advocates for their children or the students and folks that they work with. At Kentucky Spin, we do not act as attorneys. However, we empower families to effectively advocate for their children. And I think that's a really neat concept that we do provide. We train them and educate them on how they can be the advocate for their children. Therefore, we do not attend IEP meetings, but we can help prepare families and parents before that meeting begins. And we also provide peer support to help families access that needed information and to be able to access those resources. We at Kentucky Spin are either parents of a child or an adult with an intellectual or developmental disability. We either are a sibling of someone with an intellectual or developmental disability, or we are a person with a disability themselves. So we're really excited about that peer support that we are able to provide families. So before we dive in, I want to do a quick poll, and you will see a question pop up on your screen. And when that does, if you could please answer it. The poll pretty much is just, what hat are you wearing today for this webinar? If you could just complete that poll for me and let me kind of know, it lets me gauge kind of who my audience is, and that really helps. Right now it looks like we've got a few parents on. A majority that are on today are professionals, which I think is wonderful, and we're so glad that you all are joining us today, and parents and family members. I think that will definitely give us some idea of who we are, who's represented here today as we dive into this. Before we do get started with the content, I want to show you a quick video. It's like a minute and a half, so it's not long at all, but I think it will tell you a little bit about what families want and how we all want the best for our loved ones. So let's watch this just really quick.
Life course for families now has become this, for some people, a way to articulate and organize their thoughts and be able to advocate and speak those to others. And maybe they hadn't been able to put it in words before. For other people, it becomes a structure for exploring because they don't know the unknown and they don't even know how to ask the questions. With our resource center that we've run here, I find that families don't know what to ask. And we have taught families to ask for services. And this gives a way for people to really articulate what they really want. So, yeah, I might be calling and saying, what services are available in my community. But deep down, what I'm really saying is, I want my daughter to have a friend. I don't know how to get them included into their sports team. I don't know how to do that. But families, they don't know how to articulate that. So the life course becomes a way to offer questions, open-ended questions, open-ended templates and principles for you to gather your current value base and thought process, and hopefully expand that and really help you be able to articulate what you really want and need.
I love that video because I think it really shares a lot about what families are looking for. And I myself, I'm going to warn you right now, my dogs just growled a little bit. If they hear the slightest noise, they might bark. So if you see me mute for a few minutes, you will know that's because they've decided to bark really loud. But we as parents, our main goal for our children, of course, is to have a happy, healthy life. And I have a 24-year-old son with an intellectual disability, and we'll talk about him in a few minutes. But of course, my goal for him, as with all of my children, is that they're happy, healthy, and that they're living their best life. And so we're going to focus in today on creating this snapshot or profile. We want to talk about why it's important, and we're going to talk about different ways to create that so that you walk away after this hour or 45 minutes, however long we're on, with some really good tools and resources that you can even go create your loved one's profile right when you're done with the webinar today. So why is a snapshot or profile important? Well, a one-page profile, they're the foundation of personalization, and they can lead to positive change for people. So whatever their age or circumstances are, and they provide us with an at-a-glance way of knowing what really matters to people, and that can be taken with them as they move through services and come into contact with people. And I think that is really, really good. I like to look at it as a resume. So with us, as we apply for different jobs or wherever we're going in our life, we update our resume. And so that snapshot or profile is meant to be updated. It is meant to be kept current and active, so that as adults or children move from class to class, or move from service to service, or whatever they're involved in, they have the most current snapshot with them at all times. So why do I need this? So as the expert on your child, talking about a parent here, you, the parent, have valuable information to share with the people who will interact with your child during the school day and beyond. So some school staff members will attend those individualized education program or IEP meetings, but many will not have the opportunity to be a part of that in-depth discussion about your child. And IEP case managers are often reluctant to share student-specific information with other school personnel because of concerns about confidentiality. So the one thing I love about this snapshot or profile that we're going to talk about is as your child moves from grade to grade, or from this specific life event in their life, you can provide the folks that provide services or new teachers, or let's say they're in an art class this year but they're in music next year, you're able to provide that teacher with some wonderful resources and tools about your child that will help them understand. The way I always used to look at it is my son's disability is called Williams syndrome. It's not one that is very popular, and a lot of folks may not have ever even heard of it. So when he was in school, this snapshot of this one-page profile that I created for him every year, and we passed it on from teacher to teacher, was something that I felt was very important for them, because I didn't expect them, everybody that worked with my son, to understand what Williams syndrome was all about. So I did the homework for them, provided them with that tool that they needed so that they could understand Clayton, at his best, and what he really struggled with too. And so some tips and suggestions that I think are real important that I have found over the course of his school time, and now that he's 24 into the adult world, his snapshot profile looks different now than it did when he was in school. But these tips and suggestions are, across the board, no matter which style you're using. And the first one is to keep it simple. So use only one side of the paper if possible, and use those bulleted lists rather than paragraphs. So it's much easier to read at a glance, and avoid medical terminology and jargon. So use everyday words. So when I was explaining what Williams syndrome was in his little profile, I didn't use that it was a deletion on the 7th chromosome. I didn't do things like that. I talked about the strengths, and I talked about some of the struggles for someone with Williams syndrome. And I tried to keep away from that medical terminology and jargon. And prioritize. Include no more than 5 or 6 points in each of the areas on the template, because it's a snapshot. It should be just that, a snapshot. You don't want to give every little detail about, in my example, Williams syndrome, or every little detail about Clayton and everything that he loves and doesn't love. I want to do a snapshot so that the person that is reading this can refer back to it, but also have a clear picture of Clayton and his strengths and struggles. Keep it personal. Be sure to include a current photo of your child, and be specific about your child, not just their disability. So when I first started that snapshot for Clayton, I had a current picture of him, which would have been what he looked like when he was in elementary, and then middle, and then high. Well, now the picture that you'll see in a few minutes is what he is today and what he looks like today. You want to keep it personal and make sure that that photo that you do include is very, very specific. Before Clayton started attending IEP meetings, what I would do is I always passed out to everyone at the meeting a copy of the snapshot so that everyone could read about him. But I also would have, and I always brought, an 8x10 photo of Clayton with me to every single IEP meeting that I attended, because I wanted that focus to be on him. So that's really important that that current photo on that snapshot is who your son or daughter is today. And involve your child. Be sure to include your child in decisions about what information to share and with whom, especially if they're old enough to have that input. When you're creating this for them, make sure that they're involved, and there's things on there that they want, but not things that would embarrass them, but they want, that it's okay with what you've put on there is something that they want to share too. And decide who needs a copy. Think of others in the school who may work with your child, but may not every day. And so that example I used a few minutes ago was like the art teacher or the music teacher. They might not have them every single day, but they might still want that information. Your cafeteria workers, that's always a good one. Your school counselor, your nurse, the school nurse, maybe a custodian or something that might interact with your son or daughter during the day. These are just real important key people that you might not think about because they might not work with your child every single day. And then distribute. Be sure to have copies available for everyone attending that IEP meeting and others that you might want to give a copy to. Don't go in there with just one copy and say, hey, can you make a copy of this for me? Make sure you make a trip to your Office Depot or Staples and have those copies available and ready. And make sure you invest a little bit of extra money and make sure they're color so that things stand out more and that photo of your son or daughter really, really stands out. I think that that is real important to do. So how can these one-page profiles help us to support people better? Well, those one-page profiles are simple, and in this simplicity lies their strength. I think the reason why that number one tip on that page before said to keep it to one page is because you are going to catch people's attention more, and they are more likely to read a one-page document versus a 3 or 4-page document. So always be sure to keep it simple and so that you can grab their attention and that they remember those key points. So how do they help? Well, they help us build better relationships by truly understanding what really matters to the person in their life and the way they need to be supported to live it. There are certain things that my son needs support in, and when we get to his profile here in a minute that I'm going to show you as an example, you will see what I'm talking about. But providing a record that can move with the person as they transition from service to service or use multiple services, I think is very important. It's a key thing so that all the people that are involved in their day-to-day life are up to date on what they want, what that person truly wants, and what they believe a good life looks like. Make sure they're updated often to reflect people's changing circumstances and aspirations. As we all know, when let's just say when you exited high school, when I exited high school, I started to work at Hardee's. Well, thank goodness I don't still work at Hardee's today. So if I had kept that on my profile all this time, that would have been really old news. You want it to be current and new to people. You want it to change as maybe their desires and circumstances change. Today I might ask Clayton what he wants to do, and tomorrow it may be something different. So it's something that needs to be updated frequently. So when used for work, they can contribute to more person-centered teams where individuals' strengths are recognized and different ways of working are taken into account. Clayton has been at the same job since he was 16, but when he started there, I gave them a profile. I gave them that one pager that I use. It doesn't look the same as it does the one I'm going to show you in a minute because a lot has changed since then, but I still had something that I was able to provide them to show what his strengths were, and then also things that he might need assistance with and help with. So before we move on to show you all a younger child template, are there any questions right now, Kelly or Michaela?
I don't see anything right now, Stella.
Okay, awesome. Well, I want to show, and please, guys, if you have a question about anything, just be sure and type that in the question box, and we'll be sure and get to it. So we're going to look at a younger child template right now, and in your handouts, you have all of this information for you. If, like I said, if you don't want to download it right now, it's okay. We will send it in a follow-up email. But this is from Pacer Center, which is a place that we get a lot of our information from. It's a parent training and information center also. And you have this template in there, and you also have a document, that you can create this for yourself, and you'll see this on the next slide. But we're going to be talking about Joe here. But as the expert, you have that information. So all of this information about Joe, the parent or guardian, whoever spends the most time with Joe, has created about him. And I think that is really, really important to know. And so they've got Joe at a glance, but remember, one of the tips was to make bullet points. And so that's what this one looks like, the format that they've used for this snapshot. And they're looking at it like, here are Joe's strengths. And these are things that whoever's working with Joe can build on. So, he has a good auditory memory. He learns best by listening. He's very musical. And so melodies are a great way to reinforce learning for Joe. He understands his limits and he's able to follow rules. He can use his laptop independently. And he has a supportive and very involved family. And I like at the top there, before I move on, I kind of go backwards a little bit. I like that they put his likes and his dislikes. So, we know he likes computers, electronics, but he doesn't like a noisy environment. So Joe probably would not do good in a classroom where a lot of kids are constantly yelling or screaming or doing anything like that. He almost has to have a more controlled environment. And I think that's real important. And it's also good to know what Joe is motivated by. Because, if Joe doesn't like hugs, then you do not want to, if that's something that Joe struggles with, you don't. And I like it that it says in here that high fives are really good for him. I think that's real important to know. So those strengths are to build upon, but then some of the challenges that he has. He doesn't have hearing in his left ear, so a teacher would not want to do those things on his left side. And I think that's important to know too. He has poor fine motor skills and he needs extra time and adaptive materials. And his large muscle coordination and balance he struggles with. And so they've even put some long range goals in here, and I love that, to develop age appropriate behavior and social skills. And these are great things that could be incorporated all in that IEP, which I think is valuable for this information, for educators to know this information about Joe. And then to focus on for the school year. Now, this would change every year. So as a parent is creating this for the next year, they would make new goals and focuses that he would want to focus on for that school year. And I love this. One of his goals for the school year is to make a friend with whom to connect outside of school. And if you remember in that video that we watched at the very beginning, that is one thing that parents want. We want our children, especially those with intellectual and developmental disabilities, to have that peer-to-peer and have that connection with peers outside of school. And just recently, I posted a post on Facebook that was very personal to me and something that we have struggled with here with my son, Clayton. He's 24. He's been out of high school since 2015. And what we are seeing now is a lot of his peers have moved on. They're getting married. They're having children. And, Clayton is still living at home and he's still in the same job that he was in when he was 16. And so we're noticing that a lot of his peers that maybe he was friends with while he was in school, he doesn't have that connection with them anymore. And so that's really, really hard as a parent because we want them to have that friend that's not a paid friend, but it's a friend that they're able, that calls them up and says, hey, you want to go to Taco Bell tonight? It just opened in town. What do you think? And Clayton is lacking that. He has friends, acquaintances. He has some friends that have Williams syndrome that he works with, that he talks with on the computer, but he doesn't have that, big connection all the time. He has a friend that lives an hour away that he goes and stays with, once a year or something. So having that friendship is so important for parents, and we want that for our children. And so this next slide is just kind of the template that you can create your own snapshot from, and how you can, you can doll it up and make it as pretty as you want, or you can make it as simple as you want. And so you will find many, many, many templates out there in Google World. And so I encourage you to do some research. If the ones we're providing you with today aren't really, the ones that work for you, that's okay. There are many out there that you can do. And this could even be like a homework assignment. If you're an educator, it could be a homework assignment for your students to send this home with them that their parents can fill out and create, and then it could be something you could create for them with the information that they provide. There are so many ways that this can be used in school and while they're there, and as you as an educator can do and provide for them, or even a professional who even works with adults. It's something that you could help create for them. So I'll break for just a minute before we look at the older child adult template and see if we have any questions.
We did have a couple of questions. The first one is, do you feel like the professionals that received your son's snapshot used it? Were they happy to receive it? And did they find it helpful?
Absolutely 100% yes. And I can't tell you how many times, especially because I had done all the research for them already about Williams syndrome. So I think it's wonderful. A lot of times we as parents, we think everybody should understand our child's disability. And that's not fair to educators and professionals. We are the ones that need to tell them about it. So what I did is I provided them that one-page document that was just that little snapshot, but then I gave them a little more information about Williams syndrome, that if they wanted to dive in and learn some more, they already had those resources right at their fingertips. And every year, without fail, every new teacher that he was in contact with was always so grateful to get that information. So I would say 100% yes, they used it. They knew what his like, for a while, one of his speech teachers was giving him Skittles as a reward. And I had put on the little template at the time, or his snapshot, that he only liked gummies, and it had to be the Scooby-Doo gummies. It was a very specific gummy, and she realized she had missed that. And so she even told me later, reached out to me and said, I just want you to know, that we have been trying Skittles and they weren't working. And I pulled up that snapshot you gave us, and there it was right there in front of my face, that those Scooby-Doo gummies is what he needed. So little things like that, I think, make a huge difference, and professionals and educators really appreciate it.
That's great information, Stella. I think that's so true. The other question we had is, will a sample snapshot be included in the handouts?
Yes. And you are going to get that template I just showed you. And then you're going to get the template of the one I'm getting ready to show you now, which is for an older child or an adult. And this template will have a young man. It won't have my son on it. It has the template that you're getting in your handouts, has Andy Meredith on there. And it's where I used Andy's to make Clayton's. This is my son Clayton's. And so this is, you'll have Andy's version, and all you have to do, it's a Word document you'll be getting, and all you'll have to do is just type your information right over top of it and then do a save as, and it will save your information. And that's what I did with Clayton's. So before I go on, Michaela, was there anything else?
That's it for right now.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we're going to look at Clayton's vision statement. And the reason why I like to call this a vision statement versus a snapshot is the snapshot, I look at it as for a younger child. The vision statement is, I want to have what Clayton's vision is for a good life for him. And I wanted to have that on there. And so when I found Andy's, which is my friend Stephanie's son, and we even give you the link later on in our resources that we'll go over of Kentucky Works, which is where you will find this document online also, is it talks about a vision statement for your young adult. And that's what I wanted. And so I wanted to put that on there and make sure that everyone knew that Clayton's vision statement was he had 2 jobs. He works at the Bread of Life Cafe and the Dunville Christian Church Daycare. He travels with me and does motivational speaking. And someday he wants to live in his own home, to live on his own in his own home, and get married to his girlfriend. He has a girlfriend named Isabel. And actually, he leaves Sunday, flies out Sunday on his own. He's flying alone to Florida to spend 5 days with Isabel, who also has Williams syndrome, and they will be staying with her mom. And so that's just a really important thing to him. And so he goes there a couple of times. They've been dating now for 3 years, I believe, almost 4 years. And so he goes there a couple of times a year, and then she comes here a couple of times a year. So that's real important to him. And so we wanted to make sure that that was in his vision statement, so that people know that he does have a girlfriend, and that girlfriend is very important to him. And then some of his accomplishments. You always want to put accomplishments and strengths first. So on the accomplishments, he's worked at the Bread of Life for 5 years. Actually, I need to update that because it's been 6 years now. He is registered to vote. Actually, we went last week to vote together, so that's a big deal for him. He has been the band staff advisor for Casey County High School Marching Band for the last 5 years now, since he exited high school. So he goes to band competitions with the band and is in a volunteer role there, but he does have a staff position with the marching band. He speaks at many events and participated on student panels for students with disabilities, and he's a self-advocate. So those were key accomplishments that I wanted folks to know about him, so they would know one of his strengths is he's a people person. He loves to speak and he loves to present and be in front of people. So I think that is a really big accomplishment and something that I wanted folks to know about. So what works for him is that peer modeling and support. I have to remember to always show Clayton how to do something, and I model it for him. So we use a lot of social stories, which we just had a wonderful webinar on Tuesday about social stories. If you weren't on that, you can go to our website and watch that video. It should be up this either later part of the week or the first of next week for you to watch at your leisure. It's wonderful. And so we do a lot of social stories to model and give him the support that he needs. Age appropriate awards. And I even give examples like breaks. He loves to take a break. And he enjoys getting his paycheck, and he loves music. So anything that can revolve around those things are great awards or rewards for him. And specific explanations and showing him how. He needs to be shown how to do something. He is a visual learner, and he struggles when you just tell him how to do something. So everyone in my family has learned, if we want Clayton to do something, we have to show him first. So for example, he has many chores here on our farm. We live on a big farm. He has many chores, and one of his chores is taking care of the chickens. And so we have modeled for him how we want that to look, what it means during the day. We also have a visual on our refrigerator of the chores and things that he is responsible for, just like I have to have my to-do list, or guess what? My Kentucky Spin work will fall behind if I don't have a to-do list. So I think that's real important that we have put on there what works for him. What doesn't work is giving him too many tasks at one time. So for example, at his job at the Bread of Life Cafe, we have learned that the thing that works best for him is his boss knows, Clayton, will you go please put these clean dishes on the buffet? And not, Clayton, will you go put these dishes on the buffet? And then will you go up to the cashier and tell her that we have a to-go order ready? And then can you come back here and start doing the dishes again? He is not going to remember that. So I think that is real important that those one-to-one tasks are done, and that I've said to folks in this is what works for him and what doesn't work. And then removing him from friends, that is not something that is going to be a positive thing in his life. It is going to be something that is very, very negative. I've listed his strengths on there, that he's highly social, he's very determined, he shows initiative, he's hardworking. Do you see how these words are really, really important, and they're very positive? He's independent, he's musical, he's very creative, he's very dependable. Obviously, he's worked at the same job since he was 16, and he is empathetic. He has a very compassionate, loving heart for others. And so those are his strengths. Now, the things he needs help with, I'm very honest about that too. Reading. He struggles with reading. He reads probably on a 4th grade reading level. So reading is not something that he is going to be good at. But we have adapted for that, and he has Siri, and he has Alexa, and he has a lot of assistance in that regard too with technology that helps him. And Facebook, where we can use technology in order to read something to him, which is great. Counting money, he truly struggles with, so therefore math is a big issue with him. And so the money issue, he has a little bit of cash in his wallet that he has, but he has a debit card. So the debit card has become socially accepted for him. So he's able to be with his peers and not have to worry about, counting money and being embarrassed that he's not able to. Managing time is a big struggle for him. He knows when he goes to work, he knows when he gets off, he knows when to take his pills, different things like that. But as far as the concept of time, he truly struggles with. So we set alarms on his phone, things like that. We just got a new system in for his medication that has an app attached to it, and it alerts him when his medicines are due, when he needs to take his meds. So there are things that we've done. Keeping track of a schedule, that's where that phone has come in handy, where we put things in his calendar and it'll send him a reminder. So technology is a huge factor in his life. And then redirect when needed. He is going to need help. He will stay on one task for a while, and so you have to redirect him when it is time for him to move on. And I think that's real important that these areas that he needs help with, so that you can redirect as needed. I'm going to stop for just a second and see if we have any more questions, since we are finished now with that template.
I don't see any on my end.
I don't
Okay.
see any either, Stella.
Okay, great. This one-page profile you also will have in your handouts, and that you can download and create. This is the Life Course portfolio, and it is the one-page profile, and it pretty much covers everything that we did in the other one. And I like the way this one is laid out too. So it really just depends on what you prefer. But you would put, Clayton's one-page profile, and then what people like and admire about me. This could be a really good visual. You could even do this, with pictures and different things like that. I think is really, really good. What's important to me and how to best support me. So they've kind of put it in just 3 categories versus the other longer list that we had on the other profile. But I think it's real important to know that there are different templates out there, which I love, because we're not all the same and we all like to look at things differently. And so you have a lot of different choices to choose from. I have picked a few that I found that I thought were really cool, and I wanted to throw these up here just to show you how these profiles can look so different. And you will notice on the Ellie Stafford one, actually she is a friend of my friend Stephanie Meredith, who created the one-page profile, or the vision statement that I just showed you of Clayton's. So this is pretty much the same template of the one that I just showed you a minute ago. It just is a little different. I like to think it's a little more girly. And so you can see some of Ellie's strengths there in her vision statement and what works for her, and what's going on. I like it that it's in first person. So it's Ellie talking. It's her saying, this is what's important to me. It's Clayton saying, this is what's important to him. It's not what Stella, our mom, thinks is important. It's what Clayton thinks. It's not what Ellie's mom thinks that's important. It's what Ellie thinks. And I think that is a key point. If you're helping someone create one for themselves, for their child, make sure that you always do it that way. The one on Matthew up here, it's kind of blurry. You can't really see it too well, but you can get the concept of what is going on about Matthew. I think that's real important. Same key components are in that one too. And then the one on the bottom there is for a young man named Dennis, who's a high school freshman. And then he's got kind of the same thing. He's got his vision and goals, what works. It's just laid out differently on the paper. So you see, there are so many ways that you can do them. And I promise you, when you go to Google and you start looking for more, you will find plenty out there. These were just a few of my favorites that I thought were really good and kind of showed a variety of ways that you could use them. So we're going to take another poll real quick. So let me pull up the next poll. And this poll says, do you think the tools and resources offered today are ones you will use in the future? So if you will take just a few minutes and answer that poll for me, I would really appreciate it. It just kind of gives me an idea of what we're doing, if we're, if we're giving you all the tools and resources that you need. We have one more part 5 coming up, and we're going to create the portfolio, and Kelly will be doing that one for us. And so I think that will be really good. It's going to be kind of tying in everything we've learned and putting it all in one. So I've got 100% that said yes. So I'm so glad. That makes me know that, hopefully the resources and tools that we're providing for you all are things that you'll be able to use outside of the webinar. So this is pretty much our links of the tools that you've looked at today. So I'll kind of tell you a little bit about them. First of all the Charting the Life course tools that we have been going over with you all through all of these webinars are right here on the lifecoursetools.com website. So you can go on there and find those and download them if you don't have them. And it's a wonderful, wonderful library of amazing resources that are important. If I could show you, I'm not going to show you my screen or anything like that, or my camera, because my Wi-Fi isn't strong enough, but I've created a notebook. And I've recently been updating it with Clayton's information in it. And I call it Clayton Carroll's Important Documents. And let me tell you why I'm doing this. Well, it's for many reasons. Number one, my husband doesn't really know a lot that goes on with Clayton. I pretty much handle all of that. And I started to think, about a year ago, I need to gather all the information about his Medicaid waiver, his medicines, his doctors, all of that, and put it into one place. And guess what's in the very front of this notebook is his one-page profile, his vision statement. And so in that notebook, I've got all of his important documents, copies of our will, everything like that. So if anything happened to me tomorrow, God forbid, my husband could go grab that notebook and everything is right there. So I encourage you to do that. And that's pretty much what the Life Course tools encourage us to do, is it's keeping track of important information that helps you brainstorm so that, that person can have that good life that they want. So look on all of those tools and you will find some wonderful stuff that we haven't even had time to cover. Also, pacer.org is where we got the student snapshot of the first one that we showed you all of that information sheet, and there's a link there, and all you have to do in the search engine is type in that PHP-C160 and it will come up, but you're also going to have a link to it in your handouts there that you can download or that you'll get this afternoon. Now, Kentucky Works is a collaborative that's used to support youth and young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, autism, and multiple disabilities. It's mainly focusing on competitive employment, but Kentucky Works has a lot of other resources and information. And we've got some great webinars coming up that are going to be talking about working while receiving SSI and stable accounts, and also that a lot of families wonder about. And so Kentucky Works has some great resources on there about working while receiving SSI, and some great one-pagers that you can download. But it is where I got the vision statement that I used for Clayton. And so on that link there, in the PowerPoint, but also in your handouts, you will have that Word document that you can just fill in the template and bam, you've got everything right there. You can upload the picture and everything. And so I think that's going to be great for you all to have those resources right at your fingertips. So I go over this slide on every webinar, so today is no different, but we are doing every Tuesday now through the end of the year. We already have them scheduled. We are doing what's called Kentucky Spins Tuesday Tips, and they're every Tuesday at 11, and we will have lots of wonderful information and guidance available that's out there for you. And so like next Tuesday, which I cannot believe this, which will be November the 3rd, which is so hard to believe. Rhonda Logsdon, who is our executive director, will be talking about compensatory education, ESY, and the IEP. And so I encourage you, if you've not registered for that, hop on our website and register for that. She'll be going over any updated information about COVID-19 from the Department of Education and also from the U.S. Department of Education. It's a wonderful webinar that provides lots of great resources. So I encourage you to hop on that. And we also have them scheduled out every Tuesday, almost every Tuesday, for the remainder of the year. And then on Thursdays, we're doing additional webinars on a variety of different topics. And so we're really excited about those webinars. So hop on our website and look at all the ones that we do have coming up. I know you'll find one that'll be of interest to you. And if you are looking for updated information on COVID-19, I truly believe our page on Kentucky Spins website for COVID-19 is by far one of the best. We have every guidance document that has been out regarding education. We have the governor's information that he puts out daily on there. We have lots of wonderful COVID-19 resources, and we update it very frequently. So if you're looking for anything COVID-19 related regarding education, please look on our website and find that. And then we also have a Kentucky Spin e-news that goes out usually every other week. So I encourage you to hop on our website and sign up for that if you haven't already. So before we end, I want to just break one more time and see if we have any other questions before we end today.
Yes, so I saw one that says, do you have any suggestions or resources for if you're still trying to figure out what your child's strengths or challenges are, or what to include on a snapshot, or where do you start in figuring those things out?
That's a great question. And how I did over the time is, just watched things that he would loved and things that I knew he was really good at. He's always been really good at music. So I always tried, a lot of times we don't think about that as being something, that would be, we could put on something that would be education related. But he received music therapy when he was in school because I focused so much on that musical strength that he had. So things like that, but you can also do some like little quizzes and stuff with them on their strengths. Love language. I know there's a great book on, I'm trying to think of who it's by. I want to say Gary Smalley. It is a Christian themed one, but it's like finding your child's love language. And that's something many years ago I did with my children, just to find out what their love language is. We all have a love language that we're inspired by. And so it's very important to know what your child's is. So I think that is a great way to learn that and find out, what your child's strengths and needs are and how you can incorporate that into that one-page profile.
And then the other question I see, it said you had mentioned discussing ESY next week. What does ESY stand for?
Okay, it's called Extended School Year. So that is when a child with an IEP is not meeting their goals and objectives and have fallen behind. And so they could qualify for what is called Extended School Year, which is kind of like summer school, and where they will still receive their supports and services, and can meet their IEP goals over a summer or when school is technically not in session. So Rhonda will be talking about that and ways that how that can be utilized now, especially with COVID-19, and how a lot of our students might not be getting their IEP goals and needs met. So that'll be a wonderful, wonderful webinar to be on, because Rhonda is top notch in knowing all of that information. And so we're really grateful that that is Rhonda's strength, and that she focuses on that for our families. Is there anything else, Michaela?
I don't see any other questions right now.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much. We're getting off 10 minutes early, so I'm sure you'll find something to do with your 10 minutes of time. I'm so proud of my dogs. I want to reach down and just pet them and tell them how great they did for not barking one time during this webinar today. So I'm really grateful for that. At the end, you will be prompted to complete our evaluation. We really, really value your input. So if you could just take just a few minutes, complete that evaluation for us, we would really, really appreciate it. And our phone number and email and everything is right here on this screen. If you have any questions that maybe you didn't want to ask today but thought of it later, please email us, and we will be more than happy to work with you one-on-one. That's what we do best. And so thank you again for joining us, and I hope you all have a wonderful Thursday and a